right, welcome to the Books and Bolognese podcast. I'm Liv. I'm the host for Books and Bolognese Live with Liv. I am excited about episode 1 for this podcast. It's been a long time coming. I've thought of what can I possibly make this episode that is different than the Bookstagram world. And I love how I've found Bookstagram, but I also feel like there's a missing gap in the Bookstagram world. So there's a platform for us to read our books, find new books, review books that we like. But that missing piece of being able to talk to someone about new finds, new authors that they found, maybe a book that not many people have heard about, and just having a fun conversation with someone who has the same interests as us, not in a book club format. Because I feel like there are some podcasts that have book club formats. And if you don't read the book, it's really hard to connect with that podcast. So I'm excited about this. And again, first episode, figuring it all out. But I'm very excited that Lex is here with me for my first episode as a guest, a fellow Bookstagrammer. She's going to give us a little bit about her. So she's kind of jumping in with me. I have no idea what I'm doing, but at least I'm not doing it by myself. So tell us a little bit about your book page.
Hi guys, I'm Lexie, also known as Literature and Lex on Instagram, or as we say, Bookstagram. So I actually started my Bookstagram recently. It was early July, I believe, around July 4th. And I started my Bookstagram because I was posting reviews on my private personal Instagram, and it got to the point where my sister actually was like, I don't know what any of this means and I don't read books, so can you please stop posting them? And
we've all been there.
Right.
Yeah.
And I totally understand. I have so many friends that are big into books and so many people like my sister who just are not. So I dug into the Bookstagram world and I was like, hey, I think this is something I would be interested in. So that's how I got started. I hope with my Bookstagram, just probably the same as Liv, just engage more followers, keep giving reviews. Hopefully, I've met so many people thus far and talked to so many people. It's just been a great experience overall, and I'm just happy to be here with Liv for her first podcast.
Yes, I know it's a kind of a crazy world, the Bookstagram world. It's some people's full-time job. I mean, I know that's not your full-time job. It's not my full-time job either, but it's fun. I also think that my page was kind of similar to how you got started with your page. Mine was really just for my friends. I was babbling on about books, and they would text me 3 weeks later and they're like, what was that book you mentioned? I'm like, I talked about 17 books. I have no idea which one you're talking about. So I started it, and then it kind of developed with the recipes. I was trying new recipes and then recommending those too. So I'm like, let's just put them all on here. My family and friends, my grandmother is on my Instagram. I love that. It started that way. And then of course, you find a couple people, then you find some followers, and then you're like, oh wow, okay, this is becoming more than it is. But it's fun. And I too have met so many people. And it's also funny too of how we connected, because
right.
that is the biggest thing. I can't believe I didn't even mention that. Right. So I was advertising that I'm starting this podcast. Don't know who's coming on yet, but I'm starting this podcast. You DM'd me and we kind of figured out, I added her on Goodreads and I'm like, wait, hold on. Something doesn't add up. I know this girl. So we literally live in the same town.
Right.
We went to the same grade school growing up. And we both have Bookstagrams, and I feel it felt like no one around here did anything like that. So that was really fun. So that's why we're able to be live in studio today together, yes. Which is exciting.
Yes,
so,
it's very exciting.
Yes. So, all right. So let's hop into it. We have some good book news that we want to talk about, things that are going on in the book world. Some books that we have both read and we want to talk about that we recommend people to read. Some of them even good for the season, like cozy thriller.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, Halloween. Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. So some of those, some books that we're going to be even thinking about reading next. I know I'm always you swear I'm picking. The only thing I think about more than my next book that I'm going to read is my nail polish color. I'm going to read another book after this. Like, who cares what the next book is?
Right.
Like,
I'm the same way.
I know. So that, and then also we have a few authors that we want to talk about and give some time because they are, not as talked about maybe, but their books are just as good as some of the really bestseller ones.
Yes,
so
I agree.
Yeah, so let's dive into it. But first, what are you reading right now?
So as of yesterday, I started The House Across the Lake, and that's by Riley Sager.
Yeah.
And so far, so good. I'm already on page like 200. Anybody who follows me knows I read books within 24 to 48 hours.
Yeah.
When I dig into one, it's all like you said.
Yeah.
All you think about the next thing.
Yeah.
And I get really big into them. So far, so good with that one. I have many books by him that I have on my bookshelf that are like on my TBR that I haven't gotten to yet. And I'm just happy to finally get to one.
Have you read, is this the first book you're going to read by him?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I might have read something by him, but I don't remember.
I know I have one on my bookshelf and I can't remember which one it was because I feel like he's one of the authors that comes up a lot.
Yeah.
On fellow bookstagrammers who read thrillers like we do.
Yeah.
And
they love them.
I just save them. And the next month next week, whenever I buy a bundle of books, I just splurge. Basically.
Yeah. You're like, I'll read that one.
Yeah.
Put it on the shelf.
Right.
Is it supernatural? Is there supernatural in that?
No. It's more or less like missing persons type thing.
Got it.
Obviously it's fiction, but it's missing persons. I don't want to give.
Yeah, don't worry.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I think some of his books had like some like spooky elements.
Mm-hmm.
I like teeter on that. Like I'm not like afraid of ghosts. I'm not like I don't want to read about ghosts and supernatural as much. I'm like very straightforward psychological thriller.
Right.
So I feel, but I do need to branch out. I'm trying to.
I need to as well. And that a lot of my friends, my coworkers who read, they're like, I'm just not big into thrillers and I can't relate.
Yeah. That's like literally this is the only thing I read.
Right. So, but I agree. I haven't dipped into like supernatural things because I feel like as I read a book, I almost want to relate to it. And that's one of the books we're going to talk about that we both read, how it's more like believable, something that could actually happen as opposed to like ghosts and spooky stories like that.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So why don't we dive into that? Was that one of the books that we're recommending?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't see why not.
Let's do that. We could do book news after that too.
Okay.
So first, books that we both read that we're recommending. So we have a couple in particular that we do want to talk about. Which one do you want to talk about first?
Up to you. You go for it.
You pick.
We could do What Lies Between Us.
Okay. First on the list, what we planned. Okay.
By John Mars.
Yes. What Lies Between Us, John Mars. I read this. This was, oh gosh, I guess I should have. I think I rated it I rated it probably 10 out of 10.
I did 5 out of, I did out of 5. So
okay,
I did
that's why I picked these two because we both gave them 10 out of 10 or 5 out of 5. We have different rating scales, but same thing. We got to the back there. He is one of those authors that I read The Good Samaritan, I think, first by him. And then I read the next 3 books were by him. Like, I just got sucked in.
That's so funny you just said that because I actually, on my Bookstagram, won a giveaway today. And the girl who I won it off of, she's like, let me look at your Amazon wish list and I'll just pick one and then I'll send it to you as part of the giveaway. And that's the one she picked. Was The Good Samaritan. And I was like, I was so happy.
Oh my God.
Because I haven't read it.
Funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think too, his books are so well written. They're really, really very believable. This one in particular, I remember reading super, super fast. Did you read it? You read it recently, right?
Probably about a month or a month and a half ago. I'll tell you one thing for readers out there who have not read it, you will be hooked in the first, if not the second chapter.
Yeah.
I remember the end. I think it was the first chapter. I'd have to look. It was either the end of the first or second. They say like one sentence and you're like,
that's
okay.
It. Yep. Hooked. Okay. Okay. A little bit about What Lies Between Us by John Mars. Just going to read the back here. They say every house has its secrets, and the house that Maggie and Nina have shared for so long is no different, except that these secrets are not buried in the past. Every other night, Maggie and Nina have dinner together. When they're finished, Nina helps Maggie to her room in the attic and into the heavy chain that keeps her there. Because Maggie has done things to Nina that can never be forgiven, and now she's paying the price. But there are so many things about the past that Nina doesn't know, and Maggie is going to keep it that way, even if it kills her. So very interesting. I think the mother-daughter dynamic in this is just wild.
Right.
And just, it's one of those books, the second you think you figured it out. I mean, when you only read psychological thrillers, you're like, I've got this down.
Always. And it's
never right. It is never right.
Exactly.
So I feel it's definitely one of those books that I recommend. It's on my 10 out of 10 list that I have like saved on Instagram too. Any more on this book? We go to Local Woman.
No, I was just going to say what you said. The mother and daughter dynamic is great. And it actually makes you like think back to like your childhood in a sense, and growing up and like how your relationship was with your mother and just kind of like putting yourself in her shoes. And it's really interesting. I highly recommend.
Yeah, no, definitely. Local Woman Missing, Mary Kubica. I love her books. I've read a bunch of her books before. This one is so good. This was actually one of my book club picks. So physical book club picks, and everybody really liked it. One of my friends, she picked it, so it wasn't even my pick, but I did like it. So this is a psychological thriller. A beloved woman, local woman, who mysteriously vanishes, and there's really follows two characters, Meredith and Delilah, and Meredith is kind of drawn into the search and finding out these secrets. So when Meredith disappears, the tight-knit community is left reeling. Years later, Discovery reunites the investigation, forcing those affected to confront buried truths and hidden connections. So it's definitely like that small town
secrets
type. What's going on in your neighborhood. I love that.
Me too.
I love that.
I love when books do that.
What's happening next door? We're gonna figure it out.
Right.
This is another really good one, and I feel like it's psychological thriller season. So I feel like anything we recommend is like, of course, we're reading these on Christmas Eve. This is our genre, but it's perfectly fitting for right now. So those are two that we've definitely read and we also recommend. What about, you just finished Wrong Place, Wrong Time?
Just finished it. And that one was, so the whole reason I always, on my Bookstagram, one of my things are that I'll upload 5 books in my TBR, and those are the next 5 I'm going to read.
Okay.
And I like asking for opinions, suggestions, anything like that. So I posted 5 books off the top of my head. If anybody goes and looks, it's like my second post from like current second post.
Yeah.
But everybody that commented was like, loved all of them except, or loved all of them, but Wrong Place, Wrong Time was like my least favorite out of the 5. So I was like, okay, like I'm going to dig into this one, get it out of the way. Maybe I'll have the same opinion. Not at all. I finished it. And if you actually read my review, I say like all of you guys who told me that you did like DNF did not finish yet. All of you who told me you did not finish, like please suggest going back.
Yeah.
And it is tough. And when I started the book, I realized why people didn't. So basically, I'm not going to ruin anything, but it starts at day 0. So basically it's like current day, like me and you right now. Yeah. And then as the book goes on, it goes day -1. So the beginning of it, you're at the current day and it just keeps progressing backwards, but then we'll go forward. And it's like, if you're not keeping up and you're not actually focused in on the book and the details and the characters, then you're going to lose it. But if you're like me and you actually read it, it was so good. Yeah. I loved it so much.
Yeah. See, I feel like too, I'm like a nighttime reader normally. So like, I don't have like long sitting book time. Like, you know what I mean? Like you sit down and you're like, I'm reading the rest of this book, where I'm like an hour and a half, like an hour and a half increments. So I feel like books like that are hard for me to like, maybe I didn't read it since the night before and now I'm kind of like lost with that. So I could see how people would do that. I feel similarly with, I just finished this morning, actually, The Boyfriend. Frida McFadden's The Boyfriend.
I have not gotten that yet.
Okay.
It's on my list though.
Okay. So it just came out. And I mean, I really like a lot of her books. I know you have read a bunch of her books too. And people were like hating it. People like, I saw so many reviews. They're like, I think she's just tired. She just keeps putting out all these books. And I'm like, okay, like I just read anything she puts out. I'm reading. I love it. It was so good. It was great.
I was going to say, so what's your opinion?
Yeah, no, I was kind of like, okay, like kind of like what you're saying. Like, I'm going to read it because I love all of her other books. I can't imagine, some are better than others, but I can't imagine this one's not going to be great. It was really good. Right. It wasn't my favorite, but it was really good. So I think.
And that's interesting too, because that's like the whole point of like the Bookstagram community and doing reviews. Like you could have similar views on certain books with people that follow you and you
Right.
follow, but then some like this, like wrong place, wrong time. I was just, and like I said, I could see why people would be like, okay, this is too much, like to think right now.
Right.
But I loved it. It was so good. But everybody has their opinions.
I know.
It's just how it is.
I know. And kind of bringing to like some of the other reviews that we wanted to talk about today were books that people don't really talk about that often, that are from authors that maybe don't get as much traction. Like, I think I've been talking about some of them, so I feel like they're popular, but I still don't see them on all of the pages. Like, I feel like you always see the bestseller list. And like, I have been so let down by so many of the bestseller lists. Like,
I agree.
Even like book club picks, like when they place them on the label, and I'm like, if I see that sometimes, depending on whose book club it is, like, I am not reading that because everything I read is not good. Like, so I like to do my own research, and I really do rely on the Bookstagram community. But I did find another book that I recommend that I talked about on my Instagram was Don't Believe Him, that Monica Aria book. Oh my God, that was a whirlwind. That is where I sat down for, I don't think I did anything for like 3 days. I just read 3 of her books, like right off the bat. Don't Believe Him is a story. A marriage that started in scandal. So it was a teacher-student relationship in college. So this is 20 years later, it's set. Their marriage is kind of losing its spark. They're having that empty nest dilemma. Their kids are like going to college and things like that. The husband is a psychology professor at the same university that she went to. And he's a thriller novel writer. And so he's starting to seem distant. She thinks there's a midlife crisis. This is all in the back of the book, so I'm not really spoiling much. But he's having an affair. So he's cheating on her. And it's with their son's girlfriend.
Oh.
Yes. Wild.
So
it's like kind of not believable, but like it is kind
no, that definitely happens. I feel like.
I'm sure it happens. I'm sure. If anyone has any of these situations, I'd love to talk to you about it because I would like to see if this is real life. So she ends up figuring out a revenge plan. She ends up hiring the girlfriend to stay away from the son and the husband.
I have to read that.
And it's just what? Like, I'm not kidding you. Every page, you're like, wait, this isn't really happening. This can't be happening. Then there's the blurred line of, is someone crazy? Like, is someone not okay in this situation? So, like, can I believe you? But you don't get that until like 75% in. You're like, are you even a reliable narrator? I'm not even sure. So, like, you will have a love-hate relationship with this book, but I could not stop talking about this for at least like 72 hours straight. Like,
I love that.
Yeah.
Those are like the best books.
Yeah. She is incredible. Like, she's awesome. So I ended up reading Don't Believe Him by her. Then I read The Favorite Girl by her. Wild. Very crazy. And then The Next Mrs. Wimberly. And the Next Mrs. Wimberly and The Favorite Girl actually had a little bit of a tie-in together.
Gotcha. I love that too.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So she's one of the authors I want to talk about in a little bit more detail. Any other books that you recommend for the season, like definite reads?
One that I loved, I actually brought it with me today, that I haven't heard a lot about. And I think I did initially see it on a Bookstagram when I first started it in July. And that's how I got my eyes on it. And it was one of the first ones I read. And that is You Can Run by Karen Cleveland, which I feel I don't hear about her a lot. I don't know about you.
No, I've never heard of her until we talked.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and it's very interesting because I'm going to read the back to you right now. So basically, a CIA analyst makes a split-second decision that endangers her country but saves her son. And now she must team up with an investigative journalist she's not sure that she could trust in this electrifying thriller from the New York Times bestselling author of Need to Know. So basically, the book starts off with, like, we have your son. It's basically blackmail type vibes. Wow. And it's just so crazy.
Is there, like, an investigator side of it? Like, I like those when you have the detective side and then it goes to a different perspective, like multiple point of views. Do you remember? 'Cause you probably read this. Like,
so she ends up, the main character, it starts off with, we have your son, her getting blackmailed, and she works for the government. So it's basically a cross between like saving your family or your job or the country in some sense.
Cool.
So as the back of the book says, the investigator that she ends up meeting, not sure if she can trust, that's who kind of ends up helping her out to figure out like what's going on.
Cool.
Things such as that.
Yeah, that sounds good. We talked about that the other day. I added that one to my to be read list, which is a sad list that not many come off of. They just keep getting added to.
Right.
So.
And this was the one I'm pretty sure, I thought I read it on the book, but I might have been wrong. It was probably online that I saw it. But I'm pretty sure Karen was in the CIA or some analyst for the government.
Yes.
That's why I loved it so much.
Yes, I love that. Like,
Right.
that's so cool.
So it's like her writing about, I mean, not necessarily things she went through, but from like a CIA analyst point of view, like the things they deal with, the secrecy of things.
Having that perspective is kind of like, I think that's so interesting. That's like all the James Patterson books when he has all those other people added in.
Mm-hmm.
When he has a president on, I'm like, okay, then this is like the real nitty gritty. Like you're getting
Right, like
this
they
cool
know.
inside perspective. So I think that's fun.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I'm going to read that one for sure. I have that on my list, but got a lot of things on my list.
I know. So many. It's overwhelming.
So many things on my list. Okay, any other books that we're recommending? No?
No.
Okay.
Not for right now.
Yeah,
I think.
perfect. I'm going to switch gears quick for book news.
Okay.
All right, so let's switch gears with book news. We have The Housemaid being made into a movie, and then we also have Paula Hawking's new book, The Blue Hour, that's coming out. So let's start with Frida's The Housemaid movie. I read The Housemaid. I loved the first book.
I did as well. Did you read all of them?
I didn't read the third one because I didn't love the second one.
I feel like that's with series like that, that's a strong opinion.
I know. But you read all of them.
I did.
And you read them all like
back to back.
Back to back.
That's another thing that I have to do. It's just like in my mind.
But that's nice because I read it when there was only The Housemaid out and like she was just gaining traction. So, and it wasn't even the first book I read by her. Like that was, so I'm excited because this was obviously one of my favorite Frida books. I'm also really excited for the casting.
How could you not be? I feel like.
No. Also, too, so it's Sydney Sweeney. Oh my gosh, Sydney Sweeney and Amanda Seyfried to star in the Housemaid adaptation from director Paul Feig with Lionsgate. So this came out last week. I think that was the news last week.
I think so as well.
Yeah, the week after. I think it's crazy how similar they look.
I know.
Like, obviously, this is someone's job to figure out, like, who to cast for these things.
Yeah.
They're like, wow, good job. Like, this is going to be great. I love both of them.
Me too. I was just about to say that.
Yeah. There's a little, I've been hearing buzz online, like, what we think how it's going to be. Like, Sydney Sweeney is kind of newer to the acting scene. Amanda, not so much. She's been in, like, a million things. I loved everything that Sydney Sweeney was
Same.
in.
I was going to say Euphoria just.
Yeah.
I feel like her alone, just her acting, focusing on her part was great. I feel like she did a great job.
I know. Awesome. I think she's going to be really awesome in it. Also, too, like Amanda, I think is a perfect Nina. Yeah. Like I could already see how it's going to go. So I think the casting's 10 out of 10 of what we know so far. I have her too. The husband's going to be interesting to see what they do with him.
Yeah.
So I am interested. I don't think they said. I don't think so. But I don't think we know. No. But that will be exciting. So I'm excited for that to see what happens there. We shall see.
Yeah. I'm really excited for those. Like Liv said, Sydney Sweeney, Euphoria. She was in the movie. Anybody but you. Anyone but you.
Yeah.
I loved that.
Yeah, I love that too. It was so cheesy and cute. But I also love White Lotus. I mean, obviously she didn't have a huge role in that, but it was enough that I think that was like her start.
Yeah.
I think that's how she kind of got out there, and Euphoria was like the main one.
And then with Amanda, I mean, I grew up on Mamma Mia. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
I have the soundtrack. I have the movie sing-along version. Yep. Me and my mom loved that.
I know.
So I immediately go to that whenever I think of her. But
Yeah.
They're both great.
I think it's going to be great. I'm excited about that. There's also another book that is becoming a TV show, I think. Which I'll get into in a little bit because I want to talk about that. I'm going to start this book next, so we'll talk about that. What about Paula Hawking's The Blue Hour?
I put that on here as my like book news type thing because I keep seeing it everywhere. I don't know about you, but everybody that I follow on Bookstagram and even just like book news, everywhere.
Did you see the physical book?
Like the cover of it?
Yeah.
Yes.
How beautiful is
It
it?
is.
The
It is.
blue, like watercolor on the sides. I mean, I'm a Kindle through and through. I know we've talked about this too. Like, you love that. Like,
The physical.
thank God Lexie brought the physical copies of these books because I do not have a singular one. I was joking with her, like, I brought my Kindle. I don't know what for, but I have it. So thankfully you did bring the books, but it's so pretty. I almost just want to buy it. Maybe I will read it in hardcover.
I know. And that one's coming out October 29th. But like I said, because I follow Paula and I keep from her sharing it, from other people sharing it. She has a bunch of good novels that everybody has read, and we have probably read similar ones. So I'm excited. New books are always exciting.
Always nice to look for something. And then also October 29th is perfect because you'll be done with all your spooky reads by then, or finishing something up. So then you'll have something to start right after Halloween, which is perfect. So I finished last night The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden. Loved that. I'm also finishing House of Glass. Have you heard of that?
I've seen it.
Okay.
Have not read it.
Okay. It's very good. I'm only like 60% in, but I'm usually reading 2 books at one time, depending on like my mood.
That's crazy.
So,
that's another thing. I feel like we have a lot of similarities and differences when it comes to books. Like, you're like, love the Kindle. I'm like, I don't think I could bring myself to buy a Kindle.
Right. I know. I think it's so easy to flip between books when you are on a Kindle because obviously they're both right there. Right. But like, you're not holding the book and, you know, I don't know. I also feel like sometimes I'm intimidated by the page count. So if I'm holding this and I'm like, oh my God, I'm not even halfway through. Like, it's a lot easier to do that on the Kindle.
Or when you see the words, like the font size.
Yes.
And if it's like a big book and you're like, why is the font so small?
No, I know.
It's like, oh no.
Oh no, I do my magnifying glass out for this one.
Literally.
No, that's another great thing. I'm going to have to break down at some point and tell you you're going to need to have a Kindle. Because everybody... You could change the font size, everything. It's just so convenient.
I know. And
then you could get the little clicker.
Isn't there a like a feature that if like there's a word in the novel you don't know, you press on it and it gives you. So I was talking to my one friend who loves the Kindle, and she's like, I told her, I was like, I love a book where I see words that I'm not familiar with and I have to Google them. And she's like, well, if you had a Kindle, you could just do it right there. And I was like,
with one hand.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It's great. I also love being able to highlight quotes and things that like I want to look back, and then it kind of keeps them all in one area. You could go back to it. Yeah. I love doing that too. I mean, I don't do anything with them, but I just like.
I know, and I'd probably save so much money.
Yeah,
I feel like that's another thing.
Yeah, and there's so much on Kindle Unlimited.
I know everybody talks about that.
Not to get off on a tangent, but yes. So I am going to read My Darlings, which is a new book by Marie Still. I know I've talked to you about it. I definitely. I actually found out about the book 2 days before it was actually getting released. And I was telling you, because of the hurricane, she had to move her book launch party or exciting debut because of the hurricane. So it was virtual. So I was able to hop on for a little bit of that. And it was exciting because I didn't know much about the book. I read a little bit about it, but then I found out the news was that My Darlings, the thriller novel, is in works at Amazon from Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos. So the TV show will book, then turn TV show You, the producers from that. So Justin Liu and Leo Richardson are adapting the novel for TV. So it's going to be on Amazon. And I mean, Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos are involved somehow. I guess they're just like backing it. I'm not exactly sure. But it is a thriller, of course, and it centers around Eloise Williams. She's an interior designer, a doting wife, mother, and queen bee of her social circle, and she's also a serial killer. So when a mysterious blackmailer threatens to expose her past, murder becomes not just a desire, but a necessity. So honestly, I didn't need any more. Right. I'm going to read that 100%. It does give you a little bit of like You vibes where there is some type of like serial killer. It's probably going to be a little bit dark for me. But I'm going to push through. But someone on Goodreads, because I added it to my to be read, they said it was kind of like a Dexter meets Desperate Housewives. Oh, so it's kind of like that perfect housewife, but Dexter. I watched Desperate Housewives, but I did not watch Dexter.
I've only seen a few. I think I started it, and kind of got the vibe, and then just
So it's going to be like a little bloody, I'm sure. Not my normal thing, but it just sounds really interesting. I just have to read it.
Yeah, I
so
agree.
I'm
I'm
excited
definitely
about
gonna do
that. And like the fact that there's going to be a show out,
Mm-hmm.
all for it. So that's what I'm going to start next. What are you starting?
So just from the pick of luck, like I said, I'm currently reading The House Across the Lake. I should be finishing that, if not tonight, tomorrow. So next on my list is The Perfect Marriage, because again, everybody is posting this one.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like all of the comments when I asked for suggestions and opinions on those 5 books that I have coming up, or the ones that I was deciding on the other day, everybody was like, loved The Perfect Marriage.
Yes. I could see the cover.
Did you read it?
I didn't read that one.
Okay. But no, the cover is great because
Right.
crossed out.
Right.
It's
right.
very.
I think I may have gotten that on Libby on the audio, and then like, you know, my Libby subscription expired, and then I had to return it to the e-library or something like that. But it is on my list. I'm sure it's still on my to be read list. I just haven't read it. Things get lost on that list so long.
I know.
So
I know.
yeah,
I can relate 100%.
yeah. So I'm going to read my darlings, but again, I like to read 2 books at one time. I'm also going to read another book that I stumbled upon. Of course, it wasn't from my to be read list, because why would it be? Why would it be something that I've added on for just keep finding new ones. The Mother Next Door by Tara Lazowski. In the Goodreads, I love Goodreads reviews. Like, that's how I kind of decide I'm going to read this one or I'm not. At the end of the day, I see them on Instagram. People talk about them, but like Goodreads is kind of where I go. And people said it was kind of like a Big Little Lies feel to it. So that kind of hooked me in. Did you watch that show?
No, but I know like the gist.
The gist of it, yeah. So I'm going to do that, and I'm also going to read that now because it does take place around Halloween. So it's a psychological thriller in a suburban town. There's an annual Halloween block party, and it's the group of neighborhood moms call themselves the IV5 because. Because I was like cringy. I know. Okay. So the IV5 has been reduced to 4 because something happened to one of the moms. And so secrets start coming up. There's betrayal. There's loyalty. Secrets are revealed. The group face the plot twists in it. A couple of plot twists. And so it's all around Halloween. So I feel like I have to read this because like if I don't read this now, it's going to just completely escape me.
November 1st, you're not gonna.
Yeah, like I'm decorating my tree. I'm done. So those are the 2 that I'm thinking of. Now, by the time this comes out, I'll be like, oh, actually, I totally forgot about that book. Might be reading something else. I'm also thinking about Daisy Darker, the Alice Feeney book.
Mm-hmm.
That's also set on Halloween. So I'm definitely looking for a Halloween-esque read. That one is more of like it's Halloween night and every hour someone else dies. Oh. So it's kind of like a Agatha Christie kind of vibe.
Right.
So we'll see what I end up reading.
I mean, it's endless, the amount of books.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about author spotlight. Do you want to talk a little bit more about John Mars?
I just put that. I didn't really think deep into the author spotlight, but when you mentioned it, I love John Mars. I like talk to him, I DM him and he'll answer, and he's just like wholeheartedly, not that I've ever met him in person, but he just seems like a great person.
So nice.
Just overall.
I know. I feel like the authors that connect to the Bookstagram people, like that means so much for like us. We're like, oh my gosh, like that's so great. But like for them, think of how many people, like he's even pretty popular too, to be able to like reach out to you and talk to you. That recently happened with the James Patterson book that I read that was with David Ellis. David Ellis was like DMing me after I like messaged him about something and like said, yeah, it was so much fun to write. Like even that, I'm like,
that's what I mean.
So cool.
Yeah.
Love that.
Stacey, I think it's Willingham.
Yes.
Willingham. She does the same thing.
Yeah.
I feel like
great.
I just always message her or comment on her stuff and she's always liking it or replying.
I know. I love when they restory and then I'm like, I story, I tag them, they restory it, and then I restory, they restory. Like, I need everybody to
I know,
see
everybody
this.
needs to see that.
Everyone needs to know.
That they're talking to me.
Monica, I always mispronounce her name, Aria. She is another one of those authors, and she's the one I want to talk about. I feel like she doesn't get enough buzz. She's not one of the, like, New York Times bestseller. She does deserve more attention that she than she already gets. She actually, I found this interesting because I did a little digging about her because I really didn't know that much. She started writing stories like early in her childhood. She actually studied psychology in college. After she had kids, she started to write again, and she started writing romance novels in the beginning. And then she transitioned to thriller. And then kind of like since then, I think she's kind of stuck with the thriller. But only reading her thriller books, I can't imagine what her romance books are. I'm like, this girl's
right.
crazy. I can't imagine anything actually romantic going on in any of her books. But she actually got a lot of writing, and most of her writing for her thrillers happened in COVID. So she was saying it was kind of like a great time for her to hunker down and write. So she wrote a lot of these books that I have recently read during that time. So I thought that was kind of cool too. So she's another one. She like restories anything that you post about. She's like always so excited when someone DMs her about something.
And I feel like, and like you said, they don't like realize how everyone's like, oh my gosh, that's amazing, when they're literally just like, they're probably like, oh, I was just on my phone and answering these.
I know.
But like to me, we're like, oh my gosh, like celebrities, like authors that we love, and they're just like an average person.
I know.
They just don't think about it, but we're like,
I know. And it's a cool community because there's not that many communities where you can like just DM. Like, it's not like you could watch a basketball game and DM the NBA player and they're going to DM you back. Like, you know, so it's kind of cool because these are our people that we're spending a lot of time with their book and like we want to talk about it. So that's always fun. All right. Well, thank you so much, Lexie, for joining me today. That was great. And it was a pleasure having you. And for my very first episode 1 of Books and Bolognese Live with Liv. For everyone that's tuning into the podcast, I really hope that you enjoyed today's episode. And you can like our episode. You could also subscribe to the Books and Bolognese Live with Liv podcast. And you can leave a review because it does help us engage with even more book lovers like you and like other people on book Instagram. You could also share this on your social media, and you could also follow along at Books and Bolognese on Instagram. And Lex, your handle is at Literature with Lex.
Literature and Lex.
Literature and Lex.
I get confused sometimes too.
So follow us, and thank you for listening. And until next time, happy reading.